Today's lesson is going to talk about writing and solving equations, but for now we'll focus on just writing them. So we want to know that the word is means equals if we see it. So if we look in the first problem, we see 5 times the number squared is. So I just kind of write in the order that I see it. So I'm going to write 5 times a number squared. So in this case, I'll use n squared is. I see is, so I'm going to write equals, and then I'm going to write 3 times, so 3 dot, the sum of b and c, so we're going to do parentheses with an addition symbol for sum, and then I'll fill in b plus c. And just to simplify a little bit, we don't necessarily need the dots in this problem, so I like to just not write them to keep things simpler. And that's it. In problem 2, we see 7 less than the sum of p and q is as much as 6. So remember, less than means subtract, and we have to switch the order. So the sum of p and q will come first. So write parentheses p plus q, and then 7 comes second, and then is as much as 6. In the next problem, we see the sum of x and its cube. So there's sum of, we're going to draw parentheses with a plus, and we're going to write x, and its cube means x cubed. There's is equal to y times z, or yz for short. Number 4 says 4 times, so draw a dot, sum of, parentheses with a plus, f and g is identical, or is 6 times g. And again, don't really need the dots in this case, so I just kind of rewrite it to finish off. Oops, fix that. There we go. Or f plus g equals 6g. In number 5, so we start off with the area of a circle, which is unknown. So we're just going to write A for area. Is, so equals, we know what pi is, times the radius squared. We don't know what the radius is, so we'll have to use r. And again, don't really need the dot next to a letter, so that's your final answer. Number 6 is from an challenge perimeter problem. So it says the length of a rectangle side, which we don't know because I didn't say what the dimensions of the rectangle were, is, so equals 1/5 the measure of the perimeter, so of meaning times, and then I don't know the perimeter, so we'll just use a variable, usually p is for perimeter. And that simplifies to 5p, or you could write just p over 5, and that's the same thing. Okay, so those are the more basic problems that we just translate. The ones that are tricky are what I call story problems. So when I'm doing a story problem, I like to read the problem twice just so I can get everything that it actually said. And then I ask myself, what am I asked to do? And that seems pretty basic, but it is a good step. Just kind of ask yourself, okay, what did they ask me to find out? And then the other thing I ask myself is, what do I already know? So then your second step is to create a variable. So you're going to be asked to find something, an amount of something, and that's going to be your variable. And usually the word per or for each or every of those usually precede the variable. So just learn to look for those phrases. In step 3 and 4, obviously you're going to solve the equation, and then it's worth sometimes checking your answer by substituting it back into your original equation. So if we look at number 1, Andy needs to buy $850 worth of carpet for his room. Base price is $7.50 per square foot. If Andy had a coupon for $50 off, write an equation that we use to find A, area of carpet, and then solve for A. So right off the bat, your task is to find the area of Andy's room. And just so we're aware, in this problem, area is the amount of square feet in the room. So we just want to make sure we understand what that means. So when we say area, we mean how many squares can fit in Andy's room. So that would be 1 square foot. 1 square foot, there's 3 square feet, 4, 5 square feet, 6 square feet. So what that means is we have a foot by a foot square, that's a square foot. So he's going to pay $7.50 for one of those squares. Some kids think they have to do $7.50 squared, and that is a totally different context. That's not what square foot means. Alright, so I know that he will end up buying $850, so that's just going to be his total at the checkout. And since this is total, I know it's equal to that. And then I see $7.50 per meaning times. So we're going to write 7.5 per, so times, and we're going to use A because we don't know how many square feet there are. That's what we call area. So we use A. And then the only other thing we know is he had a $50 off coupon. So what that would do to spending is it would take off $50. So there's your equation. And then we just work backwards to solve. Add 50 to both sides. So that gives us 900, and then finally divide. So I think it's 120, but we're going to check this out, make sure. Yes, it is. So 120 square feet. I always label my answers because sometimes there's a follow-up question, and it just helps to know, to remind yourself what you just found. Number 7 is a more of a translation problem. So we'll write the work here. So 1/4, the distance between two cities. We don't know what that is, so we're just going to write D. And then there's the word is. 100 miles less than, so less than meaning subtraction. And 100 is going to come after it since we switched the order. 2/3 times the distance will come first. And that's our equation. So we need to solve. So we're going to subtract 2/3 from both sides because they are like terms. Okay, other fractions. So 1/4 minus 2/3 requires a common denominator, which is going to be 12. So we multiply by 3 and by 4. We get 3/12 minus 8/12. And that's going to get us negative 5/12. And then the way we get rid of fractions is by multiplying by the reciprocal. Since we need to divide, we actually multiply. And do it on the other side. And 12's reduced and the 5's reduced to 1's, so we don't worry about that anymore. And then my distance is going to be looks like 41.7, so 41 2/3, I believe. And that's going to be miles. Okay. So our last problem says Travis is going to run 10 laps per missed soccer goal. His coach decides to be nice and takes 14 laps off his total. Now he has a total of 126. How many goals did he miss? So our task looks like it's going to be find the number of missed goals. And that's what we'll assign a variable to. So we'll just maybe say M for number of missed goals. Okay, so I know that he is running 10 laps per missed goal. And we need to be careful. I see the word is, but you have to think, if I replace it with equals, it would say Travis equals going to run. That doesn't make sense. So we have to make sure is in the right context to be used as an equals. So we're going to write 10m, 10 times number of missed goals. And then we're going to take 14 off. So we're going to subtract 14 from that. And his new total is 126. Oops. And then we solve. We're going to add 14. And that gets us 140. And then we'll divide by 10. So he has 14 missed goals.